Good morning, ladies. Good morning, good morning. I am having my second cup of coffee for today because I'm just in one of those moods where I'm just like, just want to get things done. I want to get going. I've got so much to share. I've got so much excitement in my life. I'm just like, coffee just kicks you into that just like high vibe, happy state sometimes, if it's done sparingly. But anyways, I've got my beautiful little cup here. Love is the answer. I found this at a thrift store and I absolutely love this cup so much. It always reminds me of exactly what I'm doing, where I'm at. So say hello when you're jumping on. I wanted the other day when I was talking about kind of moving in with our man and kind of this whole timeline of relationships and deepen into this even some more and really discuss this more about the pacing and the speed of relationships. Because I think it's really important to assess and explore where we pull these ideas of why and how relationships are supposed to flow and how it's all supposed to work and how it's all supposed to fall into timelines, right? And I just want to be here to just blow all of that up and just tell you right now that there is no relationship timeline. Okay? There is no relationship timeline. Every single relationship that we choose to enter in with a man is going to be completely determinant based on how we feel on the inside and not how we feel on the outside, okay? And not based on specific standards or society milestones or based on, how things have been from the past relationships that you've been in, right? We can sometimes so get tied into the way that the external dictates how relationships need to be successful that we actually lose touch with what actually makes our relationship successful, okay? And so kind of deepening in from what we talked about on my last call, in the last video I was sharing a lot about how, we really get to make sure that we're choosing that timeline based on what feels in alignment to us and not moving in with a man too soon, because we want to make sure that we're pacing ourselves to make sure that he can really show up for us in that way. And I want to keep deepening into this a little bit more because I've actually had some women reach out to me and tell me, that they've actually had kind of the opposite happen, where men have been coming on really, really strong and wanting to be in a relationship, wanting to move things down the timeline, right, really fast, and they've gotten swept up in it, and it's actually backfired. And so as much as it is that I want to encourage each of you to slow down on you getting excited about wanting to move a relationship down the timeline, it's also really important that we make sure that we pace our men in moving things too fast down the timeline, right? The timeline that doesn't exist. Because I think what can happen, and hi Wendy, it's good to see you here. I think what can happen is either one of two things happens. Either the man or the woman gets really excited when they meet someone, right? And they say, oh my God, you're my dream girl, or oh my God, you're my dream man. Like, I've been waiting so much for you. I've been so excited. And our hearts just get really caught up in the energy and the excitement and the rose-colored glasses, right, of this new potential of this relationship. And if we're not careful, this can really just kind of sidetrack us from just generally getting to know somebody and really understanding, but are you actually, like, in your character, in how you deal with challenging situations, in your values and your morals, right? Are those things aligned too? Because what we don't see is that we see all the things on paper that look good, right? He's funny, he's cute, he makes us feel good, he's treating us out to nice dinners, we feel like a queen, we're like, you're my dream man. But then we don't actually make the time to make sure that he can follow through on all of the deeper qualities that could really truly make him your dream man, right? And we get swept up into the excitement and the possibility of who he could be. And two things happen. One, we either take ourselves off the market too soon and we just put all our laser focus on this one man and say, okay, you're the one, you're my dream man, let's make this relationship happen, right? And then either you get into the driver's seat and try and, meet the friends, go on a trip, sleep together, meet the parents, all that stuff, or he jumps into wanting to do that out of pure excitement for the potential of this new relationship. And drop me a 1 in the comments if you have ever experienced this in the past, either with yourself getting caught up and swept up into it, or your man getting too caught up and swept up into it. I know a lot of times as women, we notice that we can get swept up into it. But the big thing I want to talk about here today is that this can also be something that men can get swept up into as well. And that we need to make sure that we're catching ourselves and watching if that happens. And now I'm not talking about closing off our hearts. I'm not talking about being really cautious and being guarded, because that's not also going to help grow and let the relationship flourish. But we have to make sure that we're being very careful to observe the way that a relationship needs to naturally build over time to be able to get to that place of security and confidence and knowing that, yes, you really actually are my dream man. And that takes time. That takes time. And I'll even tell you, I got caught up in this way early on too. I was, in my early 20s, and it was actually with Spence, and I got really excited with him, and I wanted to move in like within a few months or maybe, it was probably about after a year or so. I was like ready to move in, and he was like, nope, not ready. And I kept being like, let's go. What are you waiting for? We're having a great time. We're enjoying life, right? But he was really good about pacing it and really taking his time. And now on the back end, it's been almost 8 years. We're still now only just engaged and just starting to plan our wedding. We have taken so much time, so much spaciousness to really get to know each other in the process. And I think this really gets overlooked, both from the fact of, one, either you're getting older and you don't want to wait that long and you want to just kind of get to the happily ever after, right? So you rush the initial stages, or you are just in this place of feeling a lot of pressure from your parents or from your family or from your friends around who you need to be and what stage of your relationship you need to be in, right? So we kind of want to rush these initial processes. But it's so important to not rush this initial time and phase of dating. Because, like I mentioned, this is about where you're really starting to understand their character, right? Understanding how they move through challenges, how they communicate when things aren't going well, just as much as they are going well, right? And as much as we as women can do that, if you are finding that a man is coming on really strong and he's also trying to push this forward and get to the next phases of the relationship too soon, this is a red flag to really recognize and notice, because men can sometimes too, they can get caught up in their feelings. And it doesn't mean that the feelings aren't valid and the feelings aren't real. But the last thing that we want is for a man to come on really strong and then realize, oh crap, I got in too heavy, too deep, too fast, and then pull way back and just end it all, right? That is the last thing that we want. So it's so much better and so much more healthy to be able to really take your time, right? Really take your time with exploring, who is this person in front of me, right? I always like to relate it to like a best friend, right? If you meet, let's say you move to a new city and you go out to like a meetup group and you meet some new girlfriends, and there's this one girl and you just totally click with her and you're like, wow, she's a really cool person. She just seems like totally the kind of person I could totally just have be my best friend, right? You don't then automatically in your mind start dreaming up how you guys are going to be best friends forever. You don't go to her and be like, will you be my best friend? Can we hang out every day? Can you be my one and only, right? That would just make her go, whoa, too much, too fast. Let's not go there. We take our time with it. We maybe reach out a week later, we get a coffee, we go on a hike, we do something. At least that's what I do with my girlfriends. But we do things to try to slowly get to know that person without putting too much investment in them up front, right? And sometimes this can be misconstrued when we put this into relationships. If we're not putting the investment in up front, then the fear comes in of, oh gosh, well, if I'm not reaching out to him, or if he's not texting me every day reminding me that we're still good and that you still like me, right, then it's all going to be doomed and ruined. No, it's quite the opposite. When we can come into it from that detached place, and we can come into it from a place of truly just wanting to get to know you as a human, right, as another human being, without all this magical fairy dust of love and potentiality of being my one and only, right? It allows there to just be a lot more objectivity in the relationship, and it allows us to be able to just step into this new budding friendship with exactly that as the purpose, as a new budding friendship. And if it happens to bloom into something else, that is beautiful. That's just icing on top of the cake, right? But we have to make sure that we're giving that space in the beginning phases of making sure that I already repeated myself, making sure we're giving the space for that friendship to develop, for those roots to grow, right? For that foundation to really be anchored in. Because I hear this sometimes where women will say, it was going so great and I don't know what happened. All of a sudden it just ended, right? And it's because sometimes we get ourselves caught up into the potential of the relationship while actually not seeing some of the things that can be the red flags that are slowly being not addressed as we just get pushed into the momentum of the excitement, right? And I know that this can be sometimes hard to manage when you are really excited and you are with a person in front of you that does seem to check all the boxes. And what I would say in these moments is just really just pull back as much as you can and just trust and know that if it's really is the dream man that you're really excited about, this is a journey, right? Relationships are a journey. They are a marathon. They are not a sprint. Relationships are a marathon and not a sprint. And I tell you, when you really approach relationships from a marathon perspective and not from a sprint perspective, it allows things to be able to work themselves through in the timing that they need, right? It allows there to be not putting something into a pressure cooker to see, is it going to sink or swim right now, right? Are we going to do this or are we not going to do this? It just gives it that nice flowing ease. And just, I'm like, what is another word for flow? But just the flow, right? The flow, the ease, the trust that it's going to work itself out as it needs to, and that you don't need to do anything to push it forward, that it's going to naturally move itself forward over time by you just continuing to show up and be you in your highest essence. So I think that that's what I really wanted to anchor in with today, just to kind of as a reminder / as a kind of a general guidance / warning too, to make sure that we are not getting ourselves caught up into the throes of early love, right? And disregarding the signs. And also remembering that we really get to pace this out. And the longer that we pace it out, even though inside we're like, let's go, I want to be at the wedding already, right? The longer we pace it out, the more juicy the journey is. And this is another thing I love to talk about. Abraham Hicks talks about life is meant to be enjoyed, right? And every phase is meant to be enjoyed. The being single is meant to be enjoyed just as much as the being in the relationship, right? There was a long time where I just wasn't dating at all. I was truly single on my own. And in the beginning, it was really uncomfortable. And there was that inkling underneath. It was like, yeah, I'm fine being single. I can take care of myself. Everything's good. But I really wish I had a man, right? I'm fine, but I really wish I had a man. And then I had to really push through that phase and then move through and get comfortable with being alone. And I think that that's something that we can tend to kind of overlook or push aside as well, this feeling of I don't actually want to admit the fears that I am alone, right? Because a lot of times that feeling or that identity of being alone comes with it a lot of other connotations that we do not want to identify with, right? I want you to really sit with this and think about this. If this is where you're at, where you're in this place of either being in a new relationship that you want to push forward, or you're not in a relationship but you want to be in a relationship, just really sinking into thinking about what comes up for me when I feel and hear the words being alone, right? Can I feel comfortable with actually being alone? Or is there a fear underneath that actually is oh God, I don't actually want to be alone because if I'm alone, then that's going to mean blank, right? What does that actually mean if you really were to anchor in to just accepting that this is where you're at right now? Because aloneness doesn't have to mean anything negative. Being alone is actually the key to being able to not be alone forever. Isn't that strange? Isn't that interesting? This has been a beautiful awakening that I've been helping a couple women to realize recently, is that sometimes we're so afraid of the idea of being alone that we actually let that fear run the show, and that fear of aloneness actually creates and manifests the being alone, right? More than if we were to actually lean into the fear, accept the fact that this is where we are right now, but that's not where we have to be forever, right? And be able to move through that fear and actually release it out of our being so that it is no longer dictating and manifesting what is showing up in our life. And this is something that I really had to lean into back when I was living in Huntington Beach. I had just graduated college. I just finished my first set of world travels, and I had moved to Huntington Beach, and I got my own apartment. And it was the first time that I was ever really alone, by myself. I didn't know anyone in Huntington Beach. I had just started a new job. I had just come back from traveling, so I didn't have my normal networks of friends, and I was living alone. And I had to really get comfortable and accept the fact that I was alone, right? Not having it mean anything about who I was or my value or me not being lovable or me not being worthy of love, right? That's what the mind wants to get into. That's what the fear starts trying to spit out to us, of all these feelings and realizations of why we are what we are. Don't go there, right? Don't go there. We need to get into that place of just truly honoring and accepting who we are, where we're at, and letting that be okay. Right? And as soon as we do that, then we start to actually recognize, okay, actually, you know what? I enjoy being alone because it allows me to hang out with me. And hanging out with me is actually pretty fun. But if we don't know that about ourselves, if we haven't actually given ourselves that time to experience that within ourselves, then we are always looking for someone else or something else to fill that void. We're always feeling like, yeah, I can do this, but that's not really what I want. And that puts in some insecurity, and that puts in this anxiety that just isn't serving you, and it's actually deterring people. It's an energetic deterrent of you not being able to feel comfortable in your presence, right? So this is a little side tangent from what I was talking about before, but it's kind of the caveat, and it's the precursor to actually stepping forward into pacing out a relationship. Because if you are so anxious or so needing to have that man in your life or have the relationship move faster down the non-existent timeline, right? Then you're not actually honoring the journey for what it gets to be and what it needs to be a healthy relationship, okay? Oh, so good. If we're not comfortable being alone, if we're not comfortable being exactly where we are in this moment, then we are not honoring the journey for what it gets to be as we move forward, because we're trying to rush it. We're not allowing ourselves to enjoy the unfolding in every moment of it, right? We're trying to rush through the moments that don't feel so good so that we can get to the good times. Well, newsflash, the good times, even if you were married, even if you had already gotten the ring and you were already on to that next phase of life, that's not going to be good times if we've never actually anchored into the fact that you are okay being alone by yourself, right? Because what you're going to find is that you're just going to be alone within the relationship, because nobody can make us feel at home within ourself except ourself, okay? Whew, boy, it's coming on hot today. It's coming on hot today. Nobody can make us feel at home within ourselves except for ourselves. And so if we do not figure that out ahead of time, before we bring a man into the picture, before we bring in all the next phase life kinds of things, of kids and dogs and all those things, right? Then we're just extending out the core issue even longer. And it actually ends up creating more issues for the relationship down the road, okay? So I just want to just kind of anchor in this knowing and this truth here that we are our own best friend. We have to be our own best friend. We have to get to the point of being so in love with who we are, regardless of who's in our life or what circumstance we're in or what financial circumstance we're in or what job we're in, right? Or what house we're in. All of that stuff is external. And relationships, men, having that dream man, that's still external. That's still something on the outside. that's not what's going to give us that feeling of peace and contentment, even though we reach for it and we hope and we think that that's what's going to get us there. That's not what's going to get us there. What's going to get us there is us actually coming back home to ourselves first and coming to this place of radical acceptance of where we are and owning that with confidence, owning that with power, owning that with strength. And from that place, then you don't have to do anything, right? You don't have to try and fix anything because you've already accepted where you are. You've already fallen in love with where you are. And then when people do come into the picture, it doesn't have to be anything around you fitting them into the voids that you can't find in yourself, because there are no voids in yourself. And so they don't feel that weird energy, and they don't feel any of the insecurities. They don't feel any of that underlying out of placeness, out of alignmentness, right? They're just coming in, getting to be a cherry on top of the life that you're already living for yourself, right? And I remember that distinction really clearly when I was in Huntington Beach, and after living there for a few months, I spent time, I loved that apartment. It was my little oasis apartment. It was right by the beach. I had this floor-to-ceiling mirror that literally took over the whole wall. The whole wall was a mirror. It was like the best thing ever. And at nighttime, just by myself, I'd light candles, and my girlfriend had gifted me a hula hoop. I was like, girl, what are you giving me a hula hoop for? I don't hula hoop. I started hula hooping inside my apartment. And at first I was thinking, what am I going to do with this big wall that has a big mirror? Should I put a table there or whatever? I didn't put anything there. It became my dance space. It became my self-expression space. It became my oasis to just come home to me and hang out with me and celebrate me in being me. And that may sound funny and weird, but I highly recommend it. Just spending some time with you without the judgment, right? Without the need to be somewhere else, without the justifying why you have to be alone in this moment and how it's going to change. What if you could just really get to the point of letting all that go and just allowing yourself to acknowledge and accept where you are? And how do you think that that would play out when bringing a man into the picture? And when having and meeting this dream man that you have in front of you and recognizing, holy crap, I think I found one. I think I found a good one, right? Got into country girl hick there. I think I found a good one. But knowing that that's not going to rush anything for you, right? Because you don't need to rush anything, because you're already wonderful and whole and complete right now here in this moment, right? You don't have to make him profess his love to you tomorrow to feel good in who you are, because you already feel good in who you are. And by radiating that out more, that's what's going to allow him to recognize your brilliance, because you recognize your brilliance, right? So, loving this conversation so much. Sophia mentioned something. Hi, Natasha. Good to see you here. Sophia said a man showed up and he's not fully aligned king, but there are a lot of things I enjoy about our connection and that could be expansive. There's this primal urge with him to give into my sexual desires, but I'm wondering if this is a test for me to see if I can fulfill my own needs and be alone until I'm ready for the full manifestation. I love that word, yeah. Is it safe to play and still remain sovereign? Yeah, it's a great question, Sophia. And I think really, this is where the universe is definitely testing you in this moment. And I think it's also really important to play in that curiosity, right? I can't tell you the answer to that. You're the one that's going to know the answer to that. But it's going to be about just slowly testing the waters within yourself, right? How much can I actually lean into a relationship without losing myself? How much can I continue to let myself be in this more expanded presence of receiving without getting too caught up into the potentials and into the excitement, right? And getting lost in the hopes and dreams of it. How can I make sure that I'm anchoring and staying grounded in me and not losing all those things that make me feel good and whole and complete in myself? And so if that's something that you are feeling like you are ready to test out, you can. But if you start to notice yourself falling into old patterns, then you know that this is not right and that I got to pull back again, right? So it gets to be this beautiful dance that you get to have with your own self, right? I love relationships, all relationships, but specifically with men. It's such an opportunity to get to know our own self in the presence of men. And that's what I wanted to talk about as well, is when we are giving so much spaciousness in these new phases of dating with relationships, what we also get to do is that we're not putting all of the focus onto this one man from the get-go, right? We are keeping our options open. We're allowing ourselves to build a friendship. We're allowing ourselves to start to see, how does this man show up for me, right? How does, over time, over new experiences, how does this man show up? Without putting any pressure on him needing to be the one for us right now, right? And when we are just letting it be a friendship that's building versus a man that we're trying to make turn into our one, right? Then it keeps us very much still in that pulled back objective space of getting to entertain lots of men at the same time. And I'm not talking about sleeping with all of these men at the same time, but just continuing to allow yourself to date and experience lots of men at the same time. Because the last thing that we want to do is put all this pressure on this one new guy and be like, you're my man, let's make this happen, right? He doesn't know if he wants to be that man for you yet. He's still trying to figure out if he even wants that for himself. So if we put that expectation on him early on, we're not doing either of us as in us or him, justice, right? Because we're putting it automatically in a pressure cooker. So the more that we can pull back and just continue to be the object of many men's desires, oh, how good does that feel? Then the more we get to make sure that we're only allowing the men that are ready to rise up, that are ready to meet us where we are up here, are coming forward, right? Casey, hi Casey. Great to see you here. How do we get there if he's already staying with me and has some major issues he needs to work through? Great question, Casey. When I'm not feeling like he loves me and that he just loves that I love him. He mentioned starting over again when we slip into negative patterns. I don't know if I can just date him after we've been doing this for a year. So he's staying with you in terms of he's living with you, I'm guessing, at this point? Yeah, and this can be also very tricky, right? When we get into that place of living with someone before we really have realized, yes, okay, he can meet me up here, and yes, he has the values that I want, right? And we kind of get into these situations. Okay, you said yes. Yeah, so you can see now why that can sometimes be dangerous to do, and it's okay. It's totally okay if that's where you're at right now. But I would ask you to really think about what do you need to do to pull back in your energy to give him and the relationship space, right? If you're living together, obviously there is not as much space as if you're living separately apart, but it doesn't mean that you can't give spaciousness in the relationship to breathe. And a lot of times when we do move into that phase of living with our man, we have to be extra careful and extra intentional about giving the relationship space to breathe, right? Because you're cohabitating, you're in each other's energy all the time. So if there are things that you're noticing that that he needs to work on, first recognizing that this is not anything that you need to fix for him. This is his own journey that he's on, and you get to just be that queen by his side that just supports him as he goes through that journey, right? And not trying to fix him or change him. He needs to make sure that he wants to do that. So that's the first part, and making sure that you're just only being there to inspire and uplift him and not nag or criticize or make him feel bad about where he's at. Because that's something that we can fall into as women sometimes, is that we can kind of get into this judgy, and I'm not saying this is you, but we can get into this kind of judgy or naggy or kind of passive comments that are just coming through in our energy of yeah, I kind of wish you were up here. I kind of wish you were more cuts, you said. Yeah, cuts. I kind of wish you were doing a little bit more for me here. And then what we're doing is we're not actually giving the space to breathe. We're not giving him the opportunity to step up. We're just kind of belittling him and reminding him where he stands and how it's not where we are, right? So we as women need to make sure that we're really anchoring into our own power and our own divine love that's not coming from him, that's coming truly from us, and only giving that love when it's coming from a place of overflowing abundance, right? Because if it's not coming from overflowing abundance, it's going to be felt as giving that is then needing an expectation of receiving something back in return, right? It's like, I gave you love, you got to give me love now. And that's not how love works. love is unconditional. Love is overflowing. Love is abundant. So if you're not feeling that it is reciprocating, I would check in with your own self of where may you be giving love and not actually doing it from a place of being overflowing, right? Are you doing it to wanting to be receiving something? Yes. Casey says, I've always been a multiple dater, but going back doesn't make sense. And it may not make sense right now since you guys are at that point of living together. Yeah, I love that, but I'm triggered too. There's layers. He goes off and visits communication. Cuts communication completely. Yeah. And I would love to really explore this deeper with you, Casey, because I think there's a lot underlying here that some may be on him and some may be things that are on you to really be able to kind of clear out and move through. Because the more that we can continue to step into being our highest essence of self, whether he's literally living in our house or he's miles away, right? It's going to be down to how am I showing up inside of this container that is this relationship, right? And am I radiating out that high essence of that high value woman that he wants to step up and be with, right? That he wants to continue to prove to you that he wants to be by your side, that he wants to continue to show to himself that he wants to be that high value man for you, right? And that doesn't have to mean going out and dating a lot of people, but it is going to mean about pulling your focus off of him and putting it much more back on you so that you can make sure that you're not trying to fix him or change him, because men can feel that. They can really feel that. I want to radiate unconditional love, but it doesn't feel safe. Yeah, there's a lot here I can tell to unpack, so I'm gonna reach out to you. We can chat more about this, my love. But I think this will wrap it up for now. I think the most important takeaway that I'm hearing from my own channeling, and I'd love for each of you to comment down on some of your biggest takeaways from this as well, but biggest takeaway being that we really need to make sure that before we try and move a relationship forward, well, let me just back up by saying we're never trying to move a relationship forward, right? That's takeaway number one. We're never trying to move a relationship forward. Number two, when we choose to engage in being in a relationship, we need to make sure that we're coming into that relationship already feeling whole and complete in who we are, right? Not trying to look to somebody else to fit or fix or fill a void that we have within ourselves. And that when we do come into a relationship from that place of being whole and complete and overflowing with love, then there is no rush, right? There is no rush. There is no need to put a timeline on when we have to meet each other's families, when we need to move in together, when we need to get married. All that pressure gets to come off, and it gets to be literally just about how do I feel in every single moment that I'm with you, right? Are there more good times than bad times? And in the not so good times, are we able to hold each other with respect and trust and feel safe to communicate in a way that feels good to both of us so that we can move forward and continue to deepen into that intimacy? And the more that we can really put the focus on making sure that we are just showing up to be in our highest essence and to be able to really show up with love and unconditional respect for that person, then we are not trying to change anything or dictate anything, and then it gets to flow exactly how it needs to be. And when it flows exactly how it needs to be, then you're not in your head overthinking it, you're not second guessing it, you're not worrying, right? And that's when you get to really relax into love. And it gets to be easy. And looking back on it now, like if I had told my past self that it would have taken me 8 years to get engaged, I'd probably be like, damn it, no, I don't want that. But now that I'm here, it's like it was all perfect divine timing. I wouldn't have wanted it any other way, even though my past self probably was fighting it a little bit. I wouldn't have wanted it any other way, because to me, there is no shadow of a doubt that when we do get married, it's not going to be a change from anything that is already existing right now. And there's going to be no surprises. And I know this person so in and out, and I feel so confident in being able to continue to show up as myself and hold him in who he is as his self, and know that that's all we have to do, right? We don't have to try to do anything. We don't have to work to do anything. We don't have to fix each other. We don't have to worry about not showing parts of ourselves to each other. Like, we've given ourselves that spaciousness to really understand who each other is in the process. So yeah, want to just leave it at that. Like I said, comment down below some things that have really hit home for you from this video. And like I said, as always, if you want to explore this a little bit deeper with me, feel free to hop on a call. Like I mentioned, I'm reopening the next round of the Attraction Academy. This is where I hand select 5 lucky ladies to go with me through my full Relax into Love course materials. And what I do is I take these women into this beautiful sisterhood container. I'm in the middle of one right now, and it's just so beautiful what's coming through with these ladies right now. I take women into this container and really give you this individual one-on-one coaching support, but within a group space. And this coaching container is just so incredibly powerful to see the epiphanies and the realizations that come through when we have not only just me by your side, but other women by your side, holding that space for you to really go into your heart, go into your own vulnerability, go into your biggest fears, and let this go, and refresh and reset and connect into who it is that you truly want to be, right? For yourself and for your future relationships. And knowing that moving out of this container, you have that healthy foundation, that knowing that you are not going to mess this up, that you cannot mess this up, and that you have all the tools to make sure that you don't mess this up, right? And then it just becomes, who's the lucky man that gets to fit into that vision with me? So if that's something that you want to explore and see if you're a good fit for, like I said, DM me, reach out, and we can get on a quick call and just chat a little bit. But for now, I want to leave you with all those beautiful nuggets, and I hope you have a beautiful weekend, ladies. And remember, as my little cup said, love is the answer, but that love starts with the love that we have for ourselves. So I want to give you all a task for today, and I want you to go out today and do one thing that expresses self-love for yourself. I really want you to think about that. What is one thing that I can do for myself to honor myself today and show myself that I love myself? So I'm actually really curious what some of these things are going to be. So comment below if you already know what that's going to be. I think for me, I want to do this as well for myself. Yesterday, fiance Spencer gifted me an incredible massage, and that was so needed, but that was something he did for me, not I did for me. So I think today it's going to be yoga. I need to give my body some beautiful yin yoga, because I've been working it really hard. I've been doing a lot of dancing, but I've not been giving it just that nice, luxurious, just rest and like gentle practice, the softness. So that's going to be my practice for today to honor my self-love. But hope you have a beautiful weekend, ladies, and I will talk with you soon. Mwah.